Hey folks, Lenny Lawson here, the car guru, still battling with this head cold. This morning I just gave in. I said, Tara, that's my wife, do you have any COVID tests in the house? Really? You think you got COVID? Well, I don't know, but this sure is lingering, and I can't taste anything. So she said, yeah, there's one in the cabinet, I believe. So I went into the bathroom, found it, did all that stuff, stuck that thing up my nose, stuck it down in the little test tube, waited 13 minutes. No COVID. I've been, I guess, one of the fortunate ones, and maybe one of the rare ones, because it seems like everybody around me has had COVID, and many multiple times. I've never had it. I thought that my luck had run out, but apparently it has not. Okay, something that has really got my attention in the last couple of weeks has been dealer advertising online and the abuses therein. At one time, you could look at a newspaper or a television ad, and you could have a certain degree of confidence that what they are stating in the ad would be the same thing that you would find if you went into the dealership, right? Well, some of you may have been deceived by a ad. Maybe you didn't read the disclaimer. That's the fine print. But for the most part, dealers played it pretty straight. Some dealers were much more aggressive in their advertising, slightly bigger discount or something like that. But there wasn't the blatant type of lying that you see today. And now it has infected in a big way online advertising. So just as a reminder, when you go online to a dealership's website and you select a particular vehicle and it shows you a price, you have to make sure that you scroll all over that particular page, all the way down to the bottom, to read the disclaimer. Now, some dealers are just not even bothering with disclaimers now. Depends on which state you are in, because there are a lot of watchdogs, or let's say a lot more vigilant watchdogs watching certain states. Our state, nobody's watching right now, apparently, unless there's some hands being slapped that I'm not aware of. Because it's just kind of like the wild, wild west. You go and you see a price, like, for example, one of my competitors has discounts that are just unobtainable. You just can't get it. And then when you scroll down to the disclaimer, you see why, because they turn right around and add $5,000 back to the price. That shouldn't be allowed. Why is it? Well, it just is. I don't know why, but I guess they'll just keep doing it until they get caught. Somebody says you can't do that. And they say, okay, we won't do it anymore. And then 90 days later, they're doing it again. But it's not just dealers, it's manufacturers too. I'm looking at a Tesla ad right here. This is for the new Model Y. Now, the Model Y is, I think, their best-selling vehicle now. It used to be the Model 3, but now it's the small, I guess you could call it an SUV. Looks like a jelly bean to me. But it's a full electric vehicle, 320 miles of range, top speed of 125 miles an hour. Where are you going to do that? Maybe at the drag strip. 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds. So what can you buy this thing for? Well, they have 3 different models. The long-range rear-wheel drive model, the long-range all-wheel drive model, and something they call the performance all-wheel drive. Oh, yeah, they also have a launch edition. Now, that's going to be one that is only available in certain colors with a certain equipment package on it. It's by far and away the most expensive. I guess it's fully loaded. But let's just look at the cash price on the long-range rear-wheel drive model, the cheapest one they have. The price here, the cash price, is $31,490. That sounds too cheap. I couldn't understand. I was shocked. Then I scrolled down, and I saw the truth. So that price, folks, includes the estimated incentives of $7,500 from the federal government if you qualify for it, and 5 years of gasoline savings in the state of Tennessee of $6,000. So there's $13,500 off of the price that they are assuming that you will qualify for. So let's just uncheck that box and see what that makes the base price. $44,990 is what the thing really cost. So that is what you can expect to pay for that vehicle if you pay cash for it. Now, should you pay cash for an electric vehicle? Heck no, not if you've been listening to this program. There is nothing that depreciates faster than an EV. And it's just, really, if you can go out, if you can find a used one, that's the way to do it. If you have to buy something and you're just hung up on buying one, then buy a used one. Don't buy a new one. But you better make sure it has a good warranty history and not a battery that's losing its capacity to charge. Let's see what a lease would be on that particular vehicle at the real price. It would be $299 a month plus tax, and that includes a down payment in this lease of $2,999, 36-month lease, and you are limited to 10,000 miles per year. Let me rephrase that. You're not limited to 10,000 miles a year. You can drive as many miles as you want to. You're just going to have to pay for any miles over the 30,000 miles in 3 years. 36-month lease, that's 3 years last time I checked. So you can drive 10,000 miles a year or 30,000 in that period. So anything over 30,000, you're going to have to pay a mileage penalty. Well, it's not really a penalty. I keep rephrasing. It's just a charge. It's not a penalty. You just have to pay for extra miles. But for this example, they're saying that it's $299 a month if you lease it. What is it if you finance it? $704 a month. What is that based on? That's based on $3,999 down, which is 6%. They just came up with that number, at 5.99% APR for 72 months. So would you rather be committed to this electric vehicle for 72 months or for 36 months? I hope you're saying 36 because the technology is going to change. It's changing rapidly every day, and it's going to change even more over the next 3 years. So don't go out and buy and pay cash or finance an EV. I know what you've done in the past, but this current market and the way things are in the auto industry, there's no way you need to make a commitment that long. Now, if you want to buy a vehicle and keep it, and wear it out, get it paid for, keep the same vehicle for 5 or 6 years, that's fine. Do it. And if you want to keep it until it has 250,000 miles on it, that's fine too. It's probably the best way to go. But if you think that you want to get into this EV market and flip to a new vehicle every couple of years, you can forget about it unless you lease it. And that will make all the difference. Okay, I'll take my first break. I'll be back here in just a minute. Okay, I am back, and I saw an ad the other evening. I was watching a football game, and it was about a 10-second commercial, and it said, get a Toyota Camry, with the emphasis on get, for just $299 a month, only at such and such dealership. Now, there was a disclaimer or a fine print. There's no way you could read it. It was extremely small. I have a 65-inch flat screen TV, and I would have had to pause it, magnify it to be able to read all of that dialogue. I'm sure it required a whole lot of money down, probably a very limited, or probably 36 months, if I'm guessing, or 39 months. A lot of leases are 39 months for some reason. And then limited miles, 10,000 miles per year over the term of the lease contract. Now, on the surface, it looks like a good payment. Most people say, look at that car payment. That's not a car payment. That's a lease payment. There is a difference. Is a lease worse? No, not in my mind. I think leasing is a great way to go. And what I don't want you to do is to be afraid of getting a lease quote. That is something that a lot of people, no, I'm buying it. I'm not leasing it. Well, folks, when you buy a vehicle and you're making monthly payments on it, you don't own it. I mean, your name's on the title, but the bank has the title. And, you miss 2 or 3 payments, they're coming after it. It's theirs. They're going to sell it at auction. because you're not paying for it. Now, when you do pay for it, when you finally make that last payment, they'll send you the title, and then you do own it. But by then, you probably have 160,000 miles on it, and you've had a lot of mechanical problems, and you may be wanting to trade it. The beauty of leasing to me, especially if you can negotiate the right deal, we'll talk about that in a minute, but the beauty of leasing is that if your normal trade cycle is every 2 to 3 years, then you can build a lease that matches right up with that, and your obligation is over after 3 years. You don't have to worry about continuing to make payments on a vehicle that's having problems. You're also, if you do a 3-year lease and you don't drive over 15,000 miles a year, more than likely you're going to be under warranty for the entire time. So you don't have to buy an extended service contract. You don't have to worry if it's going to break in that period of time because, it's going to be covered. I like that. Now, do you have to take care of a car if you lease it? Yeah, you do. If you have, if the tires wear out, you can't turn the leased vehicle in with tires that are worn out because they're going to put tires on it and they're going to charge you for them. But if you own the vehicle and your tires were worn out at 36,000 miles, wouldn't you replace them anyway? Of course you would. So if you get a crack in the windshield or if you have door dings, are you going to get something done about that? A lot of people won't on door dings. I see a lot of people in parking lots and their doors look like, somebody beat it with a ball-peen hammer. And maybe they say, oh, heck with it. That's just a Walmart. That's just one of the hazards of going to the grocery store or Walmart. And that's true. But if you own a lease vehicle and it gets all beat up, then, you're going to have to pay for that. And that's real easy to handle. You just go to a car dealership and say, who is your dent doctor? And they'll tell you, and you can make an appointment and have those dents pushed out for just a fraction of what it would cost to have a body shop do the work. So that's not really that big of a deal. So is that a downside to leasing? I don't think it is. For people who normally take care of their vehicles and they keep them washed at least once a month and, keep good tires on them and stuff like that, leasing is very attractive. But now, if you go over on miles, that's a problem. Let me tell you how the miles work on a lease. So I said that, this particular lease on this new Model Y was 10,000 miles per year. Now, if you go 12,000 miles in 1 year, do you have to send them money? No. No, it's a 3-year lease. You got 30,000 miles, actually, that you can put on that vehicle by the end of the lease. If you go over 30,000 miles, you're going to have to pay maybe 15 to 20 cents a mile over. So what does that amount to? Well, if you go 5,000 miles over, you're going to have to pay about $1,000. So, that's not cheap, but you can plan for it. If you know you're going to be over on miles, you can plan for it. The other thing about leasing is that when the day you drive the thing off the lot, they're going to give you a price of what you can buy it for at the end of the lease. So going in what the biggest liability is that you could possibly have, which would be buying the vehicle at the end of the lease. You know what that number is. And it's called the residual value. So you have the MSRP of the vehicle when you bought it new, minus the amount that it depreciates over the period of the lease, equals the residual value. Now, if you buy your car, it's going to have a residual value as well. At any point that you decide that you want to trade cars, let's say you have a 72-month finance contract, you decide you want to trade in 3 years. Well, at that particular point in time, that vehicle has a residual value, a certain value. We call it an appraised value at that particular moment. If your payoff happens to be $10,000 or $15,000 more than that value, then that's going to be carried over to your next purchase. That deficiency does not go away. A lot of people think, well, that's not fair, but that's just the way it works. That's your debt. That's money that you borrowed against that car. You can't help it that your car depreciated, but the bank can't either. And you have a certain amount of dollars that you owe them for that car. And if the car isn't worth that, that's your problem, not theirs. With a lease, it's their problem, not yours. if the vehicle is actually worth $5,000 less than what the residual value is at the end of the lease, you just say, here's the keys, and walk away. The people that take the loss is the lease company, the people that leased it to you. Isn't that cool? Now, I have two daughters that work with me here at Gateway Ford, and they drive Ford Expeditions. One of them is a short wheelbase, and the other one's a long wheelbase. One extra child in the long wheelbase, so it makes sense. But they lease these vehicles because of the short term, 36 months, because they want to take advantage of the new technology that's coming out every couple of years, and because the payments are lower than if they bought it. You know, they don't want to have to stretch it out to 72 months or 84 months. They'd rather keep it in that 36-month time window. And what Abby and Audra both do is they pre-sell their vehicles. So they have a group of friends that are just waiting for one of their Expeditions to come off of lease because they know they take care of them and they want to buy them when they come off of lease. Can you do that? Of course you can. You know what the residual value is at the end of your lease the day you sign the paperwork and take delivery of it. So, maybe 6 months before the end of the lease, you start making phone calls, see if any of your friends would like to buy an Expedition with low miles on it. And they've always been able to sell theirs, and they've done pretty well. They don't necessarily make money, but they're able to avoid paying any overcharges for miles. And the last time, I think it was Abby had excess miles, but she didn't have to pay them because she found somebody to buy the vehicle. Now, they do have an advantage over you. They work at a car dealership, but this is something you could do with your network of friends, people that you know, people that know you, maybe at your church or wherever. You could start telling people, or you could actually advertise it. I don't know how you would do that, maybe on Facebook Marketplace or just on Facebook or Instagram or something. You could start putting feelers out, say, I've got this vehicle coming due, getting ready to turn it in, but this is what it could be bought for. And typically the residual value is not a bad deal. And the person buying the vehicle doesn't have to worry about paying any additional markup or go through any real hassle. They do still have to go through the dealership where the vehicle is turned in, but you can go ahead and pre-arrange the price with the person who was leasing the vehicle to begin with. So I'm going to take my last break, but I want to get into a couple other very important things about leasing that will save you a lot of money if you pay attention. Okay, one of the dangers that we get into when we're buying a vehicle is dishonest salespeople and dishonest managers. And here's one of the things that they do. If you switch from a purchase to a lease, they want to jack the price up if you lease the vehicle. Well, I say they. This would be the dishonest dealer. And, there probably 5% of them are out there are like that. But still, it's something you have to watch out for. The key number that you want to look at is the selling price if you're buying the vehicle and the capitalized cost if you're leasing it. They are the same thing, okay? They just call it cap cost if it's a lease. So that's the price that the vehicle is going to be sold to the leasing company for, because you're leasing the vehicle from a company. It may be Ford Credit if you're at a Ford dealership, or it could be Toyota Credit, or it could be some other. It could be a bank that handles leasing. Not many banks do that anymore. But you just have to make sure that if they switch you from a purchase to a lease, that they use the same starting number. So can you trade in your car on a lease? You can. And if you have a lot of equity, you're going to get, probably end up with a very, very low lease payment. But the next time you lease, your payment won't be near as low because you're not paying anything down and you don't have a trade. So what I typically do is I coach my customers to, instead of trading your vehicle, just let us buy your vehicle. And you take that cash or that equity and do with it whatever you want to. I mean, let's say that you have a paid-for trade and that trade is worth $10,000 and you have a credit card you've been wanting to pay off that has a big balance on it. Well, take that $10,000 and pay it on that credit card. You do not have to have a trade-in. You won't ever be trading again if you get on a lease plan and keep doing it every time. And I have many customers say, well, I don't like making a monthly payment. Well, you don't have to on a lease either. You can actually take advantage of a program that they have called a single payment lease option. And instead of paying, let's say you're leasing a car that the selling price is $40,000. Instead of paying $40,000, the lease, if you added up all the payments, would be maybe $15,000. Then you can pay all that $15,000 at one time if you want to, and then you don't have to make monthly payments. It's called a single payment lease option. And you're able to keep a lot of extra cash in your bank account or in your investment account instead of putting it on a depreciating asset like a car. So if you have any questions about this kind of stuff, I know that I go pretty fast, and you might be in the middle of a negotiation or something like that. If you are, goodness, reach out to me, 423-552-2020, and I'll explain this in detail based on your circumstances and what you ought to do when it comes to a lease. Like I say, I'm a big fan of it. We do it a lot here in Greenville at our dealerships. But most of the time when we bring it up, the customers are very resistant to it because they're just not familiar with it. They think it's like renting a car, and it's really not. Okay, well, thanks for listening to this edition of My Car Guru, and I'll see you next time.